Hello, church family. It's Wednesday night, and during Lent, we take time to have potluck and to have devotion time together for fellowship and spiritual growth. But because of certain circumstances, not sure if you've heard, but there's a virus out there. So what we're doing is we are not meeting together, but that doesn't mean that we should forsake the gathering together virtually. So we're going to have our devotion today on Facebook, and we're gonna continue the series that we've been working on through the Beatitudes. And we started back on Ash Wednesday with the Beatitudes. So let's get right back into it. Who remembers what the first Beatitude is? Anybody? Aha! Blessed. Now remember, when we said blessing, the statements that Jesus is making, he's reminding us that blessing isn't always exactly what we think that it is. This isn't about you being happy and healthy and everything going your way. This is spiritual growth. The things that Jesus is talking about are the things that help us to grow and mature as believers to be more and more like him. And so he begins the Beatitudes by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, who remembers what the second Beatitude is? Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. The third Beatitude, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Now remember, each of these statements of blessing are things that normally we don't associate with blessing. Being meek, we often think of that as being a negative thing, but what Jesus is talking about is not that you are weak and subject to allowing yourself just to be abused and be run over. That's not what meek is. Being meek is having the position of power and to be justified in your rights, and yet you relinquish those for the benefit of someone else. We don't often think about that as being a blessing, but when we live that way, there is a growth, a spiritual growth that takes place that helps us to mature. Now, the new Beatitude, the next Beatitude that we're going to cover tonight, are we ready here? Okay. Blessed, once again, statement of spiritual maturity and growth, are those that hunger and thirst for righteousness. Now, what exactly do we think about when we talk about hunger and thirst? We're talking about the people that are going to receive this blessing are those that hunger and thirst. There's a deep down desire, but it drives you to do something. It's hard to be hungry and to be thirsty and to sit back and do absolutely nothing. Usually hunger and thirst is something that drives us and compels us to do something more. David says in the Psalms that his soul thirsts for the Lord, that he hungers for the Lord. And in this Beatitude, Jesus says, those that hunger and thirst for righteousness' sake. What does it mean? What does the word righteousness mean? It means to be in right standing with God, right? Now, we've talked about how the righteousness that we're supposed to strive for isn't our own righteousness. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 that Jesus has become for us righteousness. So the people who are receiving the spiritual blessing are those that are striving and driving for the righteousness that comes from Christ. Isn't it interesting that he uses these words, hunger and thirst? What is it that satisfies your hunger? What satisfies your hunger?
Food.
Food satisfies your hunger. And Jesus says, I am the bread of life. What is it that satisfies your thirst?
Water.
Water. And Jesus says that he is the wellspring of living water. When you are striving, when your soul is hungry and thirsty for the righteousness that comes from Jesus Christ, there's something special for you. And guess what happens? If you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you will be satisfied. It means that you're going to be complete. It means that you're going to be fulfilled. Why? Because if you're striving for your own righteousness, There's never a satisfaction there. But when you are just desiring deep down within your heart, within your life, when you are striving and looking for the righteousness that comes from Jesus Christ, the living water, the bread of life, guess what the promise is? The promise is this, is that you will be satisfied. In this life, you are going to find that his righteousness will sustain you. And in the life to come, it will be his righteousness that presents us before the throne of God. It is his righteousness that keeps us for eternity. So, what do we have here? The last beatitude. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be satisfied. The Beatitudes are all about Jesus reprogramming us to think about what blessing truly is, about spiritual growth and maturity. And Jesus desires deeply for you to understand that even today you can be, what is it? Blessed. Be blessed, my friends.